Hello everybody, this is 𝐤𝐤𝐤 and I shaved. I know, it's crazy. Today we're going to get into how to get started in beat making for beginners. We're going to touch on a bunch of stuff. We're going to touch on how to get started making beats, all the equipment that you need, how to pick a DAW, if you're a rapper, how to rap on a beat. We're going to talk about how to make money. And yeah, we're just going to kind of dive into that. This is my comprehensive guide, and I'm going to show you guys kind of some of the mistakes that I made and some things I learned along the way to get to where we're at now. So let's get going. Here we go. All right, so step one. What do I need? What equipment do I need? Let's say you're brand new to beat making. Let's say, you know, it's like, Joey, I don't know what I need, and I don't have a lot of money to get a bunch of this nice fancy equipment, and, you know, I can't break the bank on this. Well, we don't need a ton of fancy equipment, right? There are people who get placements and who have made, you know, giant records on just a laptop and just laptop speakers. I wouldn't recommend that necessarily, but we're gonna kind of get into just some of the stuff that we need. Number one, we do need a laptop, right? Now, Mac or PC, it's a debate, right? Which one do you get? And either works. There are DAWs that fit amazing and work amazing on either Mac or PC. I have a kind of fancy one. I have the MacBook Pro Max, and that's just because, you know, it gives me the power to edit videos, to you know, have big sessions, to mix and all that stuff. But you don't need something super fancy. You can get something on Facebook Marketplace or Amazon or eBay or whatever, right? Mac or PC. You know, I have friends that use PC, I have friends that use Mac. It doesn't really matter. So just, you know, if you're starting out, just get something that can just get you by. And then once you feel confident, once, you know, you have some money saved up to get something nicer, you can get something nicer. But you don't need to start off with the latest and greatest and all that. You can just get started with whatever you want. So next up, we need some sort of a digital audio workstation or a DAW. Right? So there's a couple things. There are a couple free ones that we can get. The one that I like, that I know a couple of my friends use that's free, is Reaper. And Reaper is a really great software. It has everything that we need. It has great stock plugins. We don't need to, you know, again, break the bank with this, right? Now, let's say we do want to invest a little bit of money. Next up is Studio One. I think Studio One's like 50 bucks. I could be wrong on that, but Studio One's another great one. It's just a really amazing DAW. And again, all these DAWs do the same thing. It's just kind of what you're going to make fit your workflow. As long as you know the ins and outs of your DAW, as long as you know what your workflow is, you can really make anything work. So now we're going to get into kind of some of the more expensive ones, right? Next up is you have a Mac, Logic Pro X. Now that's going to be about 250 bucks. So, you know, it's a little bit pricey, but again, the stock plugins are great. They just had a new update that's amazing, that really just kind of blows me away whenever I messed with that. So Logic Pro X is another great option. It's just, you know, it's an industry standard. Coming up next, we have Ableton Live. Now, Ableton Live is pretty expensive, but you can get a free trial. I have Ableton Live 11 Suite. But you know, you get a free trial. You can get you know, the basic version. You know, there's ways to make it work, right? I like Ableton because it's very easy to manipulate audio, and I do a lot of audio manipulation, sample chopping, and things like that. I love the stock plugins, and it just really fits my workflow. So that's why I use Ableton. Ableton will run you a pretty penny. You know, the license isn't cheap by any means, but it's a really great one. Next up, we have Pro Tools. Pro Tools is the industry standard for mixing and recording. So if you're going to do a lot of recording, if you're going to do a lot of vocals, if you're going to get into that space, then Pro Tools is a great option for you. And it's really great for mixing. Like I said, the workflow is fantastic. You know, the way that it prints audio is great. The playlisting, the plugins are great. So Pro Tools is really another great option. That's going to be a monthly subscription. So that's not going to be something you can just buy outright now, but it's going to be a monthly subscription. Now, one thing we want to know about Pro Tools is that it does crash, and you do need an iLock for it. So that can be very frustrating if you're working on a session and then it crashes or the iLock stops working. That's definitely some things that happen. You know, they're pretty good about getting that fixed once you reach out to us support. But yeah, that can definitely be very frustrating if you're in the middle of a session. So those are some of my favorite DAWs, you know, kind of some different price points, and yeah, so ways we can get into that. Also, I forgot, FL Studio is another great one. If you're making hip hop or trap or anything like that, FL Studio is fantastic. You know, now we're seeing a lot of people record vocals and record live instruments into FL Studio. That used to not be the case. So now we're seeing a lot of that. So FL Studio is another great one. The stock plugins are great. The MIDI roll is great. You know, programming drums and programming instruments, it's very easy on FL Studios. That's another really great one there. So yeah, let's get into the next part here. What else do we need? Well, we need some sort of MIDI controller. We don't need one, but it helps. And again, you don't have to break the bank here. You don't need some fancy MIDI keyboard, right? I use my Line 6 keyboard here. Eventually I'm gonna upgrade to a new one soon, but it works for me, man. It's just really reliable, and it's durable, and it's tough. So I got this for like 50 bucks off of Facebook Marketplace. So again, you don't have to break the bank for a MIDI controller. You can also just use the keyboard on your computer. Russ is a great, person who uses just the keyboard on his computer sometimes to play chords and to program drums and do all of that. And even I do that sometimes. So it's all about kind of what's convenient and what works for you. So that's fantastic. Now, one thing that we are going to need is a audio interface. Now, again, there's a bunch of different things that you can do. The Focusrite Scarlett is a great cheap option to get started with. You can just get the Scarlett 2i2, and that's a great one. I have friends that still use that are giant producers, in Denver that are doing very, very well. One of my buddies, he's about to play Red Rocks. He used to use just his Scarlett, so that's pretty cool. Another option, if you want to go a little bit higher price range, is the Apogee Duet. That's a really good. I used that for years, almost a decade, and it lasted me for a long time. Then it kind of, crapped out on me, but that's okay. Now, after I had used the Apogee Duet, then I upgraded to the Apollo Twin. And the Apollo Twin's great because you get access to the UAD plugins, the Universal Audio plugins, and those are really high quality plugins. We're gonna get to plugins later, but it's a really great interface, and the preamps are fantastic, and you have a lot of control over how you process your vocal or your guitar or your bass or whatever going into the interface. So that's really great. Now, again, do you absolutely need an interface if you're just making beats? No. But I do recommend it because you do want the preamps, you do want to be able to record, live instrumentation or, vocals or whatever. Because let's say you have a rapper that comes in and says, hey, I don't have anything, I want to record my beat, I want to record over your beat, and I need you to help me. And interface is going to really help for that. We're going to talk about microphones and stuff later, but, again, you can get something that's, not gonna break the bank completely, and that's pretty nice. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit later. Now, next up, what we do need, what I really do highly suggest, let's say we don't want to get a big pair of fancy studio monitors. Let's say it's just too expensive, right? I don't have $800 to drop on nice studio monitors. Well, we can just get a nice pair of headphones here. These are the DT770 Pros, and they're fantastic. These have great bass response. I've used these for, again, like a decade. I think I've went through 2 pair of them, so they're very reliable too. And yeah, it's just, I know how they sound, and it's very easy for me to mix in them. And that's another part of all of this, gear. As long as you know how your gear works and you know your gear, then that's really all that we need, right? We don't need to get all this fancy stuff. There's a bunch of different price points in headphones. You want to get something that, isn't just complete garbage, but you want to get something that, again, just fits your budget and that can work. You can make, you can make stuff that sounds fantastic, if you learn how to mix and you learn how your headphones sound. So I really do recommend a nice pair of studio headphones. That's just gonna really help, with mixing and, all of that. So, all right, we're gonna get into the next part of the tutorial here, types of beats and how to choose the right one. So let's go. We're gonna take a break here just so I can tell you guys, if you guys like what you're seeing, if you guys like this information, if you guys like my videos or my beats or whatever, please like, subscribe, and subscribe to the email list. The email list will give you 8 free beats, and there's beats here uploaded every Monday through Friday. There's mixing mastering services that you guys can get through me. And yeah, I'm just trying to help. I'm just trying to give some information, try to help you guys from making mistakes that I made along the way. So any questions, put them in the comments below, and I'll answer them. And yeah, subscribe and like, and help your boy out, because that kind of helps this channel going, and yeah, it keeps us moving in the right direction. So let's get back to it. Alright, so how do I get started making beats? What are the types of beats I can make? How do I learn how to make these beats? We're going to kind of take section 2 and 3, we're going to make it into one thing here. So let's say we're getting started, and how do we figure out what's our niche? How do we figure out stuff that we like to make? How do we figure out music that we like? Well, really, you should just go off of the stuff that you like, right? That you have experience and that you listen to a lot, right? Like if you're really into hip hop and you're like, I want to be a dubstep producer, maybe you start listening to dubstep instead, or electronic music, or you you can take things from other genres, and that can be a really cool sound. It can really give yourself a nice niche to set in when you're making beats. But you want to have experience and knowledge of how these beats are structured, and what the instrumentation is and what the drum patterns are. So you want to be listening to the music that you're making. That can be a really giant benefit here. And even when we're making a beat, right? One of my favorite ways to get started, because not everyone knows how to make a drum pattern, not everyone knows how to make chords, not everyone knows how to do the right instrumentation. So one thing we can really use here and be very beneficial are reference tracks, right? So let's just say I love R&B music, right? Well, I'm going to take an R&B song, I'm going to drag it into my DAW, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the drum track, and I'm going to copy the instrumentation, I'm going to copy the BPM, I might even copy the key, right? And that can really show us how these things are structured, right? So we're taking something that's already successful, and then we're deconstructing it and remaking something that is that is ours, that you don't want to completely copy it and just like copy it verbatim, because that's stealing. We don't want to do that, right? We don't want to we just don't want to just take everything verbatim, but we can really get a lot of ideas on how these things are structured. And that's kind of what we want to pull from reference tracks. We can also pull, how to mix it, how loud's the kick, how loud's the snare, where do the vocals sit, where do the keys sit, where do the pads sit. My memory card was full. So we can get a lot of information from that. So I really highly recommend using reference tracks there. And really you can start with the drums first, you can start with the chords first. I like to start with the chords first. I like a melody and a vibe, and then I can build a pocket around that with the drums. And yeah, so when we're recording drums, or when we're programming drums, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can play everything on your MIDI keyboard or on your keyboard, or you can program in, or I both. Or you can also take loops, from a website like Splice. You can chop those up and make them your own. Or if you just want to use the loops, then you can just use the loops. There's nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of songs that are giant that use loops from Splice. Now, one thing we can get into if we're using loops from Splice is sometimes there's copyright issues. So you have to be prepared for that too. And even though they're royalty free, if we get a placement and its song blows up, and sometimes, there's some copyright issues there still, even though they're royalty free. I know it's silly, but you definitely want to try to change the loops up or chop them up, make them unrecognizable if you are going to use loops. Or, you can take a chord loop and build around that, and then you can take the loop out, if you want to. So there's a bunch of different ways that we can do that. And yeah, we really just want to make, again, talking about the reference tracks, we want to make something that is still ours, that's still original, right? We want to try to refrain from just straight taking or using things that are online, again, because of copyright issues. If you have a song that blows up and then they're like, well, we can't release it now, then you're screwed more or less as a producer, unless you can recreate that beat. So we definitely want to be able to do it ourselves, and we definitely want to be able to take the information and use it for something original, not just take it and be like, all right, cool, that's what it is. So that's kind of some of my thoughts on beat creation and arrangement, and how we actually get started making these things. Learn from the greats, learn from people who do it really, really well, learn from your favorite producers in a genre that you're familiar with. So now mixing and mastering, right? So we can make a whole video about that. I'm just gonna go over a couple tips here, and we're gonna talk about plugins and how we use those, and some just advice on getting started with that. So I think one thing that a lot of amateur mixers do is they use too many plugins. They're like, I need the fancy stuff. I need to get all the Waves plugins, or I need to get all the UAD plugins, and that's not true. Right? You can mix the entire song with just an EQ, a compressor, and volume and panning. And that's really all that you need. So I really recommend the less is more approach first. Limit yourself. One EQ, one compressor. Make it sound good. Make it sound balanced. And really there's no way to learn that besides just doing it, right? You can look at all the YouTube videos you want. You can look at my tutorials. You can look at all of that. But the biggest thing is just learning, developing your ear for it, and figuring out what sounds good. And first, they're not going to sound super, super great, but the more you do it, the more work you put in, the more reps you put in, then we get better at it. So that's really what I recommend. Less is more, man. I'm finding myself using less and less plugins as I get better at this whole mixing and mastering thing. So like I said, all you really need is an EQ, a compressor, and volume and panning. That's all that you need. So I really recommend just starting with that. And you know, we can do a video on compression and EQ and all that stuff a little bit later. But for right now, we're just gonna kind of briefly touch on that because we can make an entire series of videos on mixing and mastering. So the rabbit hole goes very, very deep. We're not gonna get into it, but yeah, those are my tips on mixing and mastering. So now this one's kind of like a dual thing, right? So we're gonna talk about, if you're a rapper, how to rap on a beat, how to figure out a pocket, how to you know, get a flow and a cadence and all that. And we're also gonna talk a little bit about what you need to record vocals, right? So let's say you're a producer, and if you're recording somebody who's rapping or singing or anything like that, you should know a little bit about the process too. So this isn't just for rappers or singers, this is for producers and mixing engineers too, who are trying to record their clients. So we can kind of get into all of that. So really, when we're finding a pocket, we're finding a cadence or a rhythm, or even a melody, right? One of the best things we can do is pick an instrument in the song and then build your pocket around that. So typically I like to listen to, you know, maybe the hi-hats or the kick and the snare, and I'll make something that lines up with those. Everything needs to lock in. So we can't just have this cadence, flow, whatever you want to call it. We can't just have something that's completely random. You can definitely kind of bend the rules and do some weird stuff, but again, that kind of takes experience and time. So we don't want to overcomplicate it at first. Find something that you can lock into, find something that you can put a rhythm on top of, and then stick with that. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You know, let's say we're having trouble with writing or, you know, using rhyme scheme or anything like that. We can do the same thing with reference tracks that we did with making beats. You know, so you can take one of your favorite rap songs or one of your favorite R&B songs or whatever, and you can say, okay, cool, what are they thinking about here? So maybe, you know, the first line's a statement, maybe the second line's a metaphor, maybe the second line is a simile, and that, you know, that line rhymes with the first line, or, you know, you can look into these rhyme schemes, you can try to copy them as best you can. It's gonna sound like you because you're not stealing the words, but we can get a lot of information on how to build this stuff just by looking at people who've done it really, really well. I cannot stress enough how important it is. No matter what you're doing, rapping, producing, writing, whatever, study the greats. And you know, good artists borrow, great artists steal, right? So you know, you don't want to just rip something off, but definitely take information, definitely take lyrical devices, definitely look at that stuff and use it, because it's going to help you get further a lot quicker. If we're not just starting from scratch, we're not just making all these mistakes. That's something that I did when I was first starting to rap. I just kind of went just off the dome. And you know, when I started to dig into some of the greats, I started to take some of the things that they did, I started to incorporate those into my raps and my writing. Then it was like, okay, cool, now I'm hitting that next level of where I want to be at. And if you guys want to check out some of the stuff that I do, that's going to be 𝐥𝐢𝐤𝐤 on Spotify or any streaming platform. So if you guys want to use some of the stuff that I have, I make all my beats, I mix and master all my beats, I do all the rapping, I do all the singing. So if you want to look at that, then, you know, feel free. So that's a 𝐥𝐢𝐤𝐤 on any streaming platform, 𝐥𝐲EYNE. So yeah, man, so now let's talk about recording, right? So really what you need is like I said, you need your audio interface, you need an XLR cable, right? Something you can take from the mic to the interface. Typically the interface will have some sort of preamp in it. Sometimes you need something else, so definitely look at the mic that you're buying. Like if you buy an SM7B, you need a cloud lifter. Because the gain's not going to be hot enough. And if you just turn the gain knob on the interface all the way up, you're going to get a bunch of noise that's not going to sound very, very, very good. So just, again, know your gear, right? And we don't need to, again, do anything crazy here. We don't need to break the mic, you know. You definitely want a mic that's pretty good. I have a Blue Baby bottle, and I also have a Neumann mic as well. I just got the Neumann mic. The Neumann mic's great, but I used the Baby bottle for years. I also used a Rode NT2A before that, and that was a great one, and it didn't break the bank. You know, I think it was like $300, and it was a really solid mic. So we don't need to, you know, buy into the hype of, I need all this expensive gear, I need all this expensive stuff to start recording, because you don't. Again, if you know your gear, you know how to make it sound good, then that's great. You just don't want to buy something that's, you know, super cheap, that, you know, isn't going to sound good. So I definitely recommend spending a little bit of money on a mic, but it doesn't need to break the bank. You know, if you can get $300 in there, you know, or get it on, you know, on Facebook Marketplace or wherever, you can get it even cheaper. And you know, I think the Ute gear is a great way to start too. Another thing you need is a pop filter, and that's going to be one of these guys right here. One of these guys. You're gonna need a pop filter to kind of filter out all those P's and T's and those harsh sounds. You know, we don't want to have to deal with that in our session. So we're kind of doing some of the work on the way in. And if you have a good recording, it's going to be easy to mix, right? Easier to mix, at least. So you want a good recording. So you want to be in a room that's not super echoey. We want to have a pop filter. We want to have a decent mic, and we don't want to be dealing with a bunch of room noise we have to fix later on, right? You know, the phrase "I'll just fix in the mix" doesn't really work that way, right? It's going to be way more trouble than it's worth if we start off with a bad recording than if we get something good on the way in. So, you know, make sure the take is good. Make sure we're not having to move around a bunch of lines and make them fit in the pocket. Make sure we get a good recording and a good performance going in, and make sure that whether you're the rapper, whether you're the producer, make sure that the artist feels comfortable. Make sure that the artist is locked in. Make sure the artist gives you what you need to, you know, bring their song to life. And finally, you know, I know this is what y'all are waiting for. Joey, how do I make money doing all of this stuff? Well, I want to preface this by saying, when we're getting started on this journey, it's a long journey, right? And you have to love the process. We're not just going to get rich overnight. I mean, you could, but chances are very slim, right? A lot of people work their entire lives, and you know, if you lack the consistency, or you lack the work ethic, or you lack the love for the craft, then it's just not going to happen, man. It's just as simple as that. So it takes a long time. It takes a lot of learning. You know, how do I make my beats? How do I mix my beats? How do I get artists? You know, how do I market them? How do I make content? How do I do all that? So you know, it's not just making beats and then you're done, right? There's a business aspect to it that you have to learn too. And now you can bring someone else in that knows business. You know, if you want to do a team, that's a great way to do it. I know a lot of people that, you know, it's not just them, they have a team. So maybe that's the path that you choose. And, you know, you're like, Joey, I don't care about the business stuff. I just want to make my beats, and, you know, I'll have someone else deal with it. Find someone to join your team that, you know, has ideas and knows how to, you know, do all of that business stuff, because it's tough to learn. It took me a long time. You know, I'm in the game 10 years. I'm still learning things about how to market my beats and, you know, business aspects to this whole game and this whole this whole process, because it is a business. If we're trying to make money, it is a business. So now we got some avenues on how we're going to make money with this, right? So there's a couple things. Number one, you can sell or lease your beats to rappers. So you can upload your beats to, you know, a website like BeatStars or Airbit. And, you know, you can put a price point on leases and exclusive rights, and, you know, whether they want an MP3 or a WAV or the stems or whatever, right? You know, you can upload it to that, and that can be a great business. There's a lot of people that make a lot of money off that. So, you know, if we can learn how to market our beats and get an audience for that, then it's a great way to push all that stuff along. So I really do recommend doing that, regardless of if you get into anything else, because it's an awesome way to make money. You can make money in your sleep if you get to the point where you can actually bring an audience in. So that's, you know, you have to do that first. Next up is sync and film and TV. So what you can also do, you can license your instrumentals or your songs to someone who can place them in a TV show, and that can be great money. You know, you can get a publishing deal, or you can join a licensing company, or there's a bunch of different ways to do it. We can talk about that a little bit later, but in another video. But that's a really great way to make money too. You know, that's real mailbox money there. So, you know, you get checks every single quarter. You get to check when the song's placed. Again, not easy to do. It's a lot of emailing. It's a lot of finding contact information. It's a lot of making sure your beats are good enough first and your beats are professional quality. You know, this is all based off of the fact that the beats are already really good. So that's really some of the top ways we can do. We can also get YouTube ad revenue. If we're making content, we get the 1,000 subscribers and the 4,000 watch hours, then we get ad revenue off of the videos that we post on YouTube. If we can develop an audience there, you're noticing a theme here, right? We need an audience to make money. But if we can do that, then we're at a really good spot. We can just make money off of the videos. And you know, you don't even need to sell any beats if you can get, you know, AdSense revenue. You have a big audience. But if you have an audience, then you're gonna sell beats anyway. So that's kind of some of the ways that I think about making money off of this stuff. You can also do mixing and mastering for artists. You can also record people and charge for that. This is a business, guys, and you need to have a good offer, right? Like, what can you offer the artist? What value can you give, right? I know Gary Vee is always talking about that. You know, how can you give value to whoever you're trying to get to buy your product, which could be the beat you make, which could be your mixing and mastering services, which could just be your ear and your production skills, right? So those are some ways we can make money off of beats. Again, it takes a long time, so, you know, don't get discouraged, you know, your first month in if you're like, what, I didn't make any money. Well, yeah, that's okay. Keep going, keep building your business, and keep figuring out how to do things differently and pivot when you need to, and build that audience, man, because that's the biggest thing. If we can build an audience, then we're set. And if they trust you and they like you, then you're gonna be pretty well off. So there's some ways we can make money off of this whole beat making thing. And that's it, guys. That is our guide to how to get started making beats and how to get started with this business stuff and all the gear that you need. And hopefully that helped you guys. If you guys did, please like and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell. If you're a rapper and you're looking for instrumentals, we also have beats Monday through Friday on BeatStars. And on my website too, so those links are going to be down below. If you want 8 free beats, then just join my mailing list. It's super simple. You join my mailing list, and then I'll send you 8 free beats that you can use. They're for profit, so you don't need to worry about anything like that. And all the information will be in a README in the folder that you get the beats from. So that's pretty much how we get started with this thing. I really hope this helps, guys. I really hope this gives you guys some value. If you guys have any questions, then just leave a comment below, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm responding to comments whenever I get them. So yeah, man, let's get started. Let's get making some beats, and let's hopefully make some money, guys. I love y'all. This has been 𝐸, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.